prophecies foretell of an antichrist, a false impersonator Christ, who will come and deceive the whole world during the end of days. Understood properly, this concept translates to the people who are falsely claiming to embody Christ and the ideals of Christ. The Antichrist is not one person. The real Antichrist is a way of thinking, feeling, and acting. False modern-day Christianity has brought this massive deception to fruition because they're peddling what they say is Christ consciousness, and it has nothing whatsoever to do with the real article. Today, the greater body of those who claim to be quote-unquote Christian actually embody the antithesis of Christ consciousness. Fake-ass Christians are the Antichrist. So let's look at who made this false religion, the false variant of Christianity. Again, it is what I refer to as the cult of the black sun. Those who have knowledge of how the universe really works and how the human psychology really works, but are wielding that as a weapon. Therefore, they have the sun, but they have the black sun. This is what I call this dark solar cult that really rules the world. This hidden priest class of sorcerers, mental sorcerers. Our planet has been ruled for thousands of years by a dark solar priest class. This cult has no name to which it is actually referred to by its own members. They don't call themselves the Illuminati. They don't call themselves the Black Sun. They don't have a name for themselves. They just are, and they just do what they do. When I was involved in Satanism, folks, they didn't go, we're the cult of the Black Brotherhood of the Ram. Nothing of the sort. They never named themselves. It's the cult without a name. And it's worldwide. And it's every ostensible denomination of faiths. It's every race. It's every culture. It's every monetary class, financial class, believe it or not. People think, oh, it's only rich men enslaving the world. Yeah, that's what you think. And it's women too, folks, before we say it's just all men. No, there are ruthless women in the dark priestess class. Believe me, they hold a lot of influence in it. There were women involved in Satanism that were a lot higher on the occult hierarchy than a lot of the men. So it's everybody. It's not one group of people. It's not white men, rich people, Jews, Freemasons. No. Dark occultists come from all walks of life and every continent on the face of the earth. This cult has no name to which it is referred by its own members, but some people refer to it quite wrongly as the Illuminati. I take exception with them being called the Illuminati. Want to know why? I'm the Illuminati. You're the Illuminati. The people in this room are the Illuminati. Illuminati comes from the Greek meaning illuminated ones. It's a plural word. It means those who are illuminated with knowledge. Well, why would you want to apply a positive term like that to these jackasses in the dark occult? I keep trying to tell people, if you're enlightened, you're the Illuminati. You're the enlightened ones. Not them. They're not spiritually enlightened. They may be enlightened about how to manipulate people, but that doesn't mean that they've reached spiritual enlightenment. I say that term is wrongly applied to this cult because the truly illuminated would never behave in the way these dark sorcerers behave. Their cult uses light or knowledge of the human psyche and the laws of nature against the masses of people who are in ignorance of such knowledge in order to control and enslave them. This is why this cult has also been called the Black Sun, the cult of dark knowledge. They invented the world religions. I keep trying to tell this to people who are involved with religion in whatever capacity. It's like, oh, no. They created all the other religions. They didn't create my religion. They made Islam and Judaism, but they didn't make Christianity. And then somebody who subscribes to Islam say, yeah, they gave a fake variant of Judaism and Christianity, but they didn't touch Islam. And then the Jews will say, no, they gave the Christians and the Islamists a total false religion, but the Judaic religion remained completely true and preserved. Yeah, okay. Everybody wants to take their prejudice into the truth. That's the problem. Can't be done. Not if you're really being honest with yourself and you really want to go far down the path of truth and enlightenment. You could do that and lie to yourself and say, oh, I'm making progress, but I'm taking my religion with me. Good luck with that. The Flavians and early Christianity. The Flavians were a ruling bloodline sect of the dark solar cult who ruled the Roman Empire during much of its existence. The Flavians developed a problem controlling the population of the Roman Empire because some segments of the people they ruled were beginning to gain knowledge of the illegitimacy of being ruled and wanted to be free. This is what overt controlling dynasties usually degenerate into. When you have overt control, the people know that they're oppressed and ruled. The Romans beat people into submission with their centurions. You didn't submit to their ruling authority. They just ran you through with a sword and crucified you. Everyone knew they were just a gang of thugs that said, we're God, we rule, you're going to do what we say or die, which is what the mafia of their time. They were the mafia of their time. Just like government is the mafia of our modern time. But when you have an overt rulership like that, everybody sees it. And they're like, oh yeah, piss off the Romans and they're going to run you through with a sword. So eventually they say, we don't want to live like this. We want to be free. And they openly revolt physically. That was the problem that was going on in the early Roman Empire. Because of certain philosophical knowledge that was spreading among the peasant or slave population. This period of time was known as the crisis of the 3rd century. Oh my God, it was a crisis. Freedom was breaking out. We can't have that. We got to go back to enslavement immediately. This is a crisis. This is what the ruling class, of course, called it, the crisis of the 3rd century. This, quote, crisis in human thought had developed in Egypt centuries before. This earlier awakening was driven by a resurgence of the Egyptian mystery traditions, really the Chemician mystery traditions, much older than the Egyptian mystery traditions. And again, the word Egypt actually comes from Haigeptos, which means the place of the spirit of Ptah. That's what the word literally means. It was Memphis, the capital of Egypt. And the older word for all of Egypt was Chem, meaning the land of the black land for the effluvial soils of the Nile, which turned the soil black and made it fertile. So, the Chemician mystery traditions, named after the land of Chem, were then the newer Egyptian mysteries that the Greeks took into the Roman Empire when the Ptolemies and other later Egyptian kings were eventually absorbed into the Roman Empire. So this earlier resurgence in thought and spiritual awakening was driven by a resurgence in the mystery traditions being taught at Alexandria. These mystery traditions were, of course, the spiritual core of esoteric Christian thought. Okay? Again, part of where this was happening, this outbreak it was like a renaissance of that day, okay, was happening in Alexandria. And this is Hypatia, who was one of the female teachers at Alexandria. Okay, she taught in one of the places known as the Serapeum, which was an adjunct to the Library of Alexandria. This is a movie that was made about her life and teachings and death called Agura. And Agura means a free and open market, a free way of interacting with other people on a voluntary basis. One of the best movies you will ever see. How many people here have seen this movie? Yeah, this is why. That's it. They don't want you to see this movie. Do not want you to see this movie. Okay? They really don't want the idea of freedom that's contained within it out there. They certainly don't want the idea of a truly empowered, anarchistic type female out there. That's the last thing they want to push in Hollywood. Okay? So this movie got buried hard. They really tried to keep it out of public consumption. Believe me. Watch it. You will thank me for recommending it. It's a phenomenal movie. It's a very sad, depressing movie, though, I have to tell you, because it ultimately is about how this ruling class destroyed knowledge. But it's so worth seeing. It's so worth seeing. You'll love it. And, you know, we need more women in the world today like Hypatia. Anyway. The mystery traditions were, of course, the spiritual core of esoteric Christian thought in early Christianity. But such a mentality catching on with the masses of people, the peasant classes, certainly would not serve the psychopathic ruling class of the Roman Empire. That ruling class had already dealt with the Jewish rebellions a century earlier, and they needed a plan to snuff out this new rebellion in thought before it became a more widespread problem. So they were already dealing with countless Jewish rebellions all over the Roman Empire. The Jews didn't want to be ruled by the Romans. This is what was happening around the 1st century AD, when Jesus is said to have lived. And a lot of people would suggest that his teachings were fomenting these physical rebellions in the Roman Empire. So they needed a plan. They're like, my God, they're not buying into our old lies and deception and disinformation and propaganda anymore, and they're not really respecting even our forceful control. They're really trying to break their minds free. So this is a crisis, and we really need to do something about it. And boy, did they. The Flavians' own astrotheology-based religion was devoted to a solar deity called Sol Invictus, the unconquerable sun. These solar cult members sought to unify the Roman Empire under a common state-run religion by challenging the problematic early Christian philosophy, changing the problematic early Christian philosophy to reflect the myths of their own astrotheological solar god, which they themselves inherited from even older solar cult traditions. This just goes way, way back, folks. I mean, you can go back to Tammuz and or Nimrod of Babylon. You know, you can go to the Zoroastrian tradition. You could go to, as depicted here, Serapis of Egypt. You can go to Horus and Osiris, which were solar figures of Egypt. And there's countless solar myth hero figures throughout history. Because again, the sun represented light, knowledge, enlightenment, spirituality. And there were, hero saviors who, conquered the darkness within themselves and thus conquered the darkness of the night through the resurrecting sun. This is where this whole allegorical myth came from. At the bottom of this image here, you see Sol Invictus depicted on a Roman coin of this time period. The continuity of this solar deity mythos can be observed in the stories and characteristics of gods like Mithra, Zorilus. And again, you see here he came from the Flavian dynasty. All the emperors from the Flavian and Neo-Flavian dynasty were actually born Flavians. So his first name was Flavius. He would ultimately take up the task of bringing to fruition the new Roman state-controlled religion. In 325 AD, Constantine held the Council of Nicaea, where exoteric religious leaders of the time were held under duress to develop a Rome-sanctioned legal religion suitable for the masses. And I call this Constantinianity or Constantinianity. Okay? It's not Christianity. This is the religion of Constantine, or at least a religion that the true dark priest class of his day gave to him to introduce. You know, it's like calling the modern Flavian form of Satanism Levianism. You know, it's not really his. He didn't come up with Flavian Satanism on his own. He was given the satanic underlying ideology and told, compress this and put this into a book for the masses to read. This is the same thing Constantine did. It was his charge by his dark occult brethren. That was what he was tasked to do. Just like LaVey was tasked to give people the modern form of Satanism. So he gathered all these cardinals and bishops and put them in a council under duress. They were held there under Roman centurion guard. And he said, you are going to invent a religion that is going to be capable of mind controlling the masses back to subservience, or you will not leave this room alive. Literally, that's what he did. Under his orders. So, they came together to develop a Rome-sanctioned legal religion suitable for the masses. This council would invent today's modernized version of Christianity with Jesus portrayed as the Son of God. They invented this divinity aspect of Jesus. He was no longer a teacher, a rabbi, someone who was preaching morality and natural law. Now he was the Son of God, because he was to take up the role of Sol Invictus, the unconquerable Son of God of the Roman religion. They're just substituting out one God for the other to give people a low-level, watered-down variant of their religion to believe in. They also invented the highly censored text of the canonized Bible, which eliminated and suppressed hundreds of books of spiritual and esoteric information, including the Nag Hammadi library, which we'll talk about. Their job was to erase the truth and feed the population lies. They were what you might call the modern media of their day. This is a depiction of the Council of Nicaea, with Constantine ruling as the king in the front, being consulted there by one of the priests. The Nicene Council weeded out any knowledge which spoke of spirituality that was forbidden by the ruling class. Some of the concepts censored by them included any mention of soul reincarnation over multiple lifetimes. That was all ripped away from canon scriptures. You were not allowed to even conceptualize the notion under this new religion that death was not the end of consciousness or simply the end of living in this realm or coming back here, and you would just immediately go to some other afterlife. Because they wanted the idea that it was one and done. They didn't want the idea sticking around that we could learn things and have experiences through multiple lifetimes in the physical domain. They also purged the idea of each individual's intercessor-free connection to the Creator and creation. They wanted you to have an intercessor between you and the, quote, divine, between you and God. You had to go through a priest in the new state-sanctioned religion. They also eradicated the already pre-existing notion of women's equality with men in their right to teach spiritual knowledge, or in other words, exist as part of a priest class or a teaching class, a spiritual teaching class. Women are just as adept at doing this as any man can be. Yet this new religion was a form of patriarchal control because it subjugated women and forbade them from being in the priest class. These were just some among many esoteric ideas they censored, which came largely in the canonical elimination of a whole body of early Gnostic scriptural information known as the Nag Hammadi library. As if this wasn't a bad enough setback to early Christian philosophical thought, their most devastating blow would be delivered in their bastardizing of the Scriptures by adding in completely untrue enemy provisions to their finalized canon. And of course, I am referring to the infamous Romans 13. And once again, please note the name of the book, ladies and gentlemen. Romans. Romans 13, the canonizing of the authority of man. Here's what Romans 13 actually says. Now I'm going to read Romans 13, verse 1 through 7 in its entirety. Listen to this sheer bullshit. Let everyone be subject to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except that which God has established. The authorities that exist, otherwise saying the powers that be, have been established by God. Whoever rebels against the authorities is rebelling against what God has instituted, and those who do so will bring judgment on themselves. For rulers are not a terror to those who do right, but they are a terror to those who do wrong. Your rulers a terror to the wrongdoers? Could have fooled me. Do you want to be free from your fear of the authorities? Then do what is right, and they will praise you. Oh yeah, the government's going to praise you for doing the right thing. Yeah. They're just heaping mounds of praise on me all day long. Do what is right, and they will praise you. For the authorities are God's servants for your good. But if you do wrong, be afraid, for the rulers do not wield their sword for no reason. They are God's servants, agents of wrath, sent to bring punishment on the wrongdoers. Therefore, it is necessary to submit to the authorities, not only because of possible punishment, but also purely as a matter of conscience, because it is the right thing to do. This is why you pay your taxes, for the authorities are God's servants who give their full time to governing. Give to them what you owe to them: taxes, respect, fear, and honor. That is scriptural text that exists in the Bible.